coherent, consistent? Is a particular theological tradition comprehensive? Does it address the whole range of human experience? How does one belief relate to another? How do beliefs express themselves in life choices and in human conduct? Theology asks us to apply our beliefs into practical situations and apply our theological convictions to a course of action. It's within a tradition and looks for an internal coherence and logic. Religious studies teaches religions as a subject of scientific study. We stand outside the tradition to analyze it, and we utilize methods such as historical, literary, anthropological, cultural, ethical, and sociological approaches. Let me just make that concrete for you in terms of, say, the Introduction to Religious Studies. What a course like that does is asks, what are the common elements of religions? So a variety of religions have sacred texts, sacred persons, rituals, prayer, sacred persons. And students are looking at the common elements of a variety of religions. They leave that course not knowing Buddhism as a system of thought, or Christianity or Hinduism as a system of religion, but they know the common elements that are in all of those things. It's an analysis and a synthesis of those things. So religious studies kind of looks from without into the religion, whereas theology kind of stands within the tradition to analyze it there. And we do both. The department has had a bit of schizophrenia over the years and has changed its name several times. Let's see, we've gone from religion to theology in the 50s, then theology became theology and sacred scripture, that became theology, then it became religious studies, then it became theological studies. So we've been struggling over the past 40 years to say, what is it that we do? And we're fortunate to be at a place that we have a competent faculty that does both and does both well, publishing and teaching in both religious studies and theology. And so it's our conviction that we're very pleased to offer the major once again to the students and to the college as a way of highlighting our Catholic intellectual tradition and our mission and identity as Emmanuel College. Oh, I thought you wanted your last word.
I'd like to thank our panelists for each of your perspectives. And now I invite the audience to ask any questions that you have of our four panelists.
Unless we were so compellingly clear, we can go to lunch.
Yes. Jen, could you please stand and...
The question was directed for the new philosophy. I know that for the theology and religious studies major, there was discussion about integrating sociological aspects. For the philosophy major, what type of these sociological aspects, and I would imagine the critical thinking skills that the English department utilizes, what parts of that are integrated into the major?
I gave Jen $20 to ask that question. We're trying to take over the English department. I think everybody at the college does teach the students to think critically. And from the many syllabi I've seen, that's put out there, that's one of the course goals. So it's not just the exclusive domain of the philosophy department. We have courses in symbolic logic and critical thinking. And we kind of fit nicely into the mission of the college because we have courses in ethical decision making as well. So, but a lot of others do. So we don't have any plans right now, but I'm going to have lunch with Lisa after, and we'll see what kind of a deal we can make. I think one thing to note in the spirit of your question is that the philosophy department does a lot of interdisciplinary stuff already. For example, we have 4 courses in general requirement areas, not moral reasoning. So that we have symbolic logic that takes care of the QA general requirement, and we have 2 in the A area, one in aesthetics and one in literature, and then one in philosophy of religion. And we have interdisciplinary courses, for example, like the course that Joe Kurz and Ray Livertier teach. And is Michelle here? We have, I think Michelle's working on an interdisciplinary minor case studies. So it's kind of essential to philosophy to be connected with other departments, and I think that's one of the areas of growth that you're going to see the department direct its efforts to interdisciplinary stuff, because that's part of the strategic academic plan, and I think that's been underutilized so far. But thanks for the question.
I was just wondering if the panelists could comment, and start with the students, or actually start with Marius. We've been talking a lot, obviously, about the mission of Catholic identity in college. And I was wondering if each of you could comment on how important you find that Catholic part of the mission to you personally, and how you might give an example of how it would play out in your daily work as a student and as a faculty member. So you could each just kind of comment on that.
Start with the students.
Sure. Well, as I said before, Catholicism and Orthodoxy are very similar. So I would carry out the Catholic mission as a student, and the fact that one of my goals as a person, or more as a Christian, is to have no distinction between my spiritual life, my academic, my professional. So with religious studies, that allows me to combine all of them into one, to teach not as a profession, but as a vocation, or to study as a vocation. It just kind of incorporates all aspects of my life. So that's one way Catholic mission pertains to.
If there is any way that I can be said to encompass Catholic values in my everyday life, I would say that it would be to do good and to seek truth.
How do we relate as Catholics
Yeah,
to the
just
mission?
kind of how the mission resonates with you personally, and then kind of it's
Well,
it's
I can
easy to think of it, I think, as distinct from what we do, but I think our whole purpose here is to kind of see how it.
My first part of the answer is a show and tell. Hello? But I think in a subtle way, one of the things that John Henry Newman decried, and Sister Janet referred to, was these confessional denominations or evangelical churches that equate religion with feeling and emotion, and therefore doesn't really have an intellectual component to it as much. One of the things that I really bring as a Catholic intellectual to the mission of the college is this critique or this ability for knowledge to confront knowledge, to pursue truth, and to do it academically. Very frequently in my religious studies courses, I begin by saying, the purpose of this class is not catechetical, and it's not faith formation. We certainly hope that the study of religion deepens you as a person and may be beneficial to your individual spiritual life and your identity. But what the Catholic intellectual tradition allows us to do is to say, what we're concerned about here is the acquisition of knowledge and the pursuit of truth. And so that's kind of like the backdrop against which Catholic identity allows me to appropriate the Catholic mission. Yeah.
Stand up. I want to address that on the intellectual academic level as well. And, there's a tendency, I think, in some philosophy departments at Catholic colleges to try to stay as secular as they can. And certainly that would be the case at non-Catholic colleges. And that has been the case, I would say a former dean promoted that sort of thinking here. But I don't think so. I think this dialogue between faith and reason is very important, whether you're a believer or not. And it's important for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of philosophers are embarrassed to ask questions like, what's the meaning of life? What's the point of it all? Can you construct a worldview? Can you construct a philosophy of life? Because those are pretty slick questions. And they like to stay with narrow, kind of detailed issues. But I think those are really important questions. Those are the questions that students come in with. And they've had since they've been 4 years old, and they should be addressed. They got answers to it already. Let's reflect on what those are and see if we can make some. And I think the fact that we're in a situation where we have theology, religious studies asking those questions as well allows the philosophy department to do so. The other thing is this. I think there's two models for thinking about the best ones anyway. Think about the relationship between faith and reason. One is Augustine's. And Augustine says basically faith seeking to understand. So the scripture gave us all the answers to the big questions. We don't have to worry about it. Philosophers coming up with those answers anymore. But we've got to figure out what the heck some of them mean. God says, I am who am. What the heck does that mean? Well, you've got to go to philosophers to figure out what that means. So there's a relationship between philosophy and theology there. But it works the other way too. Because I think academically, if you see the institution as a place where you get practical knowledge and you get answers to questions that are available only to observation and reason, then you leave a whole other dimension of life to explore out. This spiritual dimension, the dimension of values that maybe go beyond the voice of observation and reason. So I think there's a dialogue there. I think faith can pull philosophy up a little to ask other kinds of questions, and philosophy can help guys like Tom figure out what I am, who am means.
I would have gone to a scripture scholar myself.
Well, Lisa asked me to comment too, and I echo the four preceding panelists' remarks, and I would just bring it to another level, which also exists and which Sister Janet alluded to in terms of her analysis of Catholic colleges in the United States, and that is the whole power of witness. And as I was listening to Sister Janet's remarks and the remarks of the panelists, I was thinking about how it all comes together for me. And one way it came together, now over 30 years ago, was as an undergrad, I was very taken by the tremendous witness of the sisters. And they were in many different roles, and Sister Mary T. Kelleher was the Dean of Students, and she was beloved by all the students because she was the Dean of all the students. And Sister Janet was in the English department and the Education department, and there were many, many other sisters too, and they all were so committed to a mission. And I know that inspired me. And also, I had a sense of their internationality, that the order was not bound in just one place, that they brought in speakers and they were talking about their sisters all over the world in 20 countries. And for me, as an undergraduate, they made this abstract philosophical concept of God more real and more human. And so one of the things, as we look at data for the National Religious Vocation Conference in Chicago, as they trace now the young men and women coming from Catholic colleges to religious orders, there is a strand of people who are trying to put their faith life and their intellectual life together in a radical life as a disciple of Jesus within a religious order. So I didn't come prepared to say anything today. It was Lisa's very good question that sparked my own thinking in this regard, that there's a lot happening on Catholic college campuses, a lot that we can't see, because it happens, the learnings and the inspiration and the witness happens within the classroom, but it also happens in so many other places on the campus. And all of us are a witness.